Ladies and gentlemen, coming soon, a podcast you've all been waiting for. The movie podcast to end all movie podcasts. A podcast that discusses and critiques the best of the best and the worst of the worst movies playing at a theater near you. With a host whose opinions have been deemed as fact by your favorite fact checkers. And that's a fact. Without further ado, let me introduce you to the movie maestro, the tyrant of theater, the gumshoe of review, the man that makes theater employees and Hollywood execs shiver by his mere presence. Ladies and gentlemen, the judge, the jury, the sultan of cinema, Justin Henson. Welcome to the Movie Wire.
Welcome to this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I'm your host, Justin Henson, and welcome to the show. It's going to be a fantastic show this week with 4 brand new reviews, 2 new for theaters, and 2 now available to stream. This week on the show, a new faction of Transformers, the Maximals, join the Autobots as allies in the battle for Earth in Transformers Rise of the Beasts. The flavor you know, the story you don't, in the origin story of Flamin Hot Cheetos. These branding biopics are getting a little out of hand. In the Disney Plus and Hulu exclusive, Flamin Hot, you reap what you sow in the new character-driven drama thriller playing in select theaters now is Master Gardener. Miles from Earth, their adventure begins in the Disney Plus original, Crater. And finally, now The Flash did release this week, and I did attend an advanced unfinished screening, and I posted an early review on episode 75. And I will say that I am confident in my rating and review, and I have to say that even though I am sticking to my rating, I did enjoy it more during the second viewing. Make sure to tune in to episode 75 to listen to my review of The Flash. Now, with that said, we've got a lot to cover this week, so let's jump right into it. Ready for my verdict? Let's go.
Out of the windows, what? A roar and a bursting of flame.
The Movie Wire podcast.
There it is. Just meet people like me.
The Wire.
And here we go.
After the death of his father, a boy growing up on a lunar mining colony takes a trip to explore a legendary crater, along with his 4 best friends, prior to permanently leaving the moon and relocate to another planet in the Disney Plus exclusive, Crater.
You were born here, raised here. This dome is the only world you've ever known.
There's a place just off past the Eastern Ridge.
Right there.
Dad, what are you talking about?
You'll see. Get out there. To the crater.
Whatever's out there, your dad wants you to see it.
We've never even been outside the dome before.
So what's it gonna be?
We're leaving tonight.
I hear she's weird.
Why?
She's from Earth.
So?
The peculiar.
You're peculiar.
All in favor? Let's go steal a rover.
The lockdown will commence.
Come on!
In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You know the best thing about road trips? You get to leave everything behind.
Here it is. Bottom of the ninth. The wind-up.
The sky on Earth, is it really blue?
Yeah.
Wow.
The most important thing to remember.
This is a bad idea.
Watch out!
It's not just about where you're going.
Meteor shower! Addison, run!
It's about how you get there. The people you get there with.
Caleb, what's in the crater?
I don't know. Guess we'll find out. You guys go first.
You're never quite the same as you were when you began.
These were the best 2 days of my life.
Now, watching this movie, I was reminded of the movie Explorers from 1985, starring young Ethan Hawke and River Phoenix. I remember as a kid, this movie terrified me. And it's not just the seclusion of being confined in a makeshift trash can spaceship, but the fact of being secluded in space in the small makeshift trash can spaceship. Even as a kid, I looked at this spaceship and knew there is no way that thing is going to hold up in space. Now in Crater, I got the same feeling, but on a much more mild level. Maybe because this is set in the future where technology seems more advanced, our traveling kids have more durable travel methods. Or the fact I'm a grown adult now, but the sense of fear still lingered with me watching this group of kids travel in the quietness and blackness of seclusion of the moon. But just like our kids from the Explorers, these kids are braver than even adult me can ever be. The film stars some tremendously talented kid actors that do a fantastic job in this, including Isaiah Russell Bailey, McKenna Grace, Billy Borrett, Orson Hong, Thomas Boyce, who played Caleb, Addison, Dylan, Borney, and Marcus. Now, even though all the kids did a fantastic job here, there was a standout performance, and that was by Isaiah Russell Bailey as Caleb, who reminded me of a young Ethan Hawke with a hint of a subtle 80s child performance that comes across adventurously innocent but confident. Now, the premise of Crater is simple. In the distant future, we have inhabited the moon, and we have promises for the people a chance to inhabit a paradise. Caleb recently lost both parents and is now guaranteed a chance to go to his utopian colony. But by doing so, he would have to leave his group of friends, as it takes years to get to this colony, and this would mean that his group of friends would have already aged, grown up, and passed away by the time he reaches this new colony. So the group of friends decide to take one last trip away from their complex secretly to visit a mysterious crater. When the journey begins, events take place to leave our group of friends in danger of being stranded and not making it back to their complex alive. Crater is defined as a coming-of-age story, which we do have certain elements to encourage this, but the movies focus more on how the group of friends handle life-threatening events versus really getting to know the relationship and each individual to really have an emotional attachment to the actual characters. The movie throws in a lot of situational events for the characters to kind of overcome, but the characters don't have enough dialogue to get to know each other, to lend on their strength, to really show an example of how they're coming together to handle these events. This movie would have succeeded better as a character-driven film, to get to know each other, to lean on each other's strength on how they survive these situations. We get situational events to drive the story than having our characters react, and nothing more than that. For a Disney Plus exclusive or straight to streaming, what I will give credit compared to a lot of the other Disney Plus films that we have seen in the past is that this film does have some good moral lessons surrounding friendship, love, loss, along with how we remember those that we lose. I did appreciate how clear the messaging was when surrounding these topics, and with each emotional element there was a moral lesson of support and vocalizing our vulnerabilities to those around us. The messaging is clear enough for families to have a conversation around, and for some kids might hit an emotional core, but not in a negative way. With every bit of sadness of emotion, Crater backs it up with signs of hope, which if you do have conversations surrounding this movie's messaging, it would be important to point out during these events because the prominent emotion here is loss, and the emotion can overpower the thought of hope in an adolescent mind. Crater also succeeds and does a fantastic job at creating an environment on the moon and really utilizing its surroundings. But the biggest thing it lacks is more context of the kids' living situations and the conflict. We have this whole colony and structure that I really wanted to explore. I needed more showing and less telling me what the world they live in is like, so I can compare and contrast later conversations our kids refer to. I wanted to see more of that world of living in the complex on the moon, since this is a newer world that the viewer hasn't really experienced before versus pictures, movies, videos that we've already seen of the moon. And this would have also raised the stakes of the conflict for our characters so the viewer can relate to why the kids are doing this instead of being told why they're doing this. The film teeters around more of a movie than what we got, and I really wanted to see more of the holistic world. Without this aspect or even more visuals or descriptions of a utopian colony Caleb is being sent to, there's nothing that stands out in the film except for great performances from some of the terrific group of kids and the straightforward messaging. Crater is a movie that tries to make a coming-of-age film with a morally right compass to really land a simplistic but important message for kids and family, but lacks any substance, imagination, and detail to really take it to the next level. The cast is fantastic, the chemistry is there between our kids, but the film always feels like it's missing something, which at the end of the day, with all these elements, will become a forgettable family flick. I'm giving Crater 2.5 stars.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby.
Now, before we get into the rest of the show, make sure you check out my reviews on previous episodes for movies that just became available to rent, buy, or stream now. Now available. To be your hero, it takes a lot of gut in The Machine, which was a ridiculous but at times a fun romp, receiving 2.5 stars. Robert De Niro is back to play a mere father figure prop around a comedian in the horrid comedy About My Father, which received a mere 1 star. Not all races can be won in Fast 10, which barely missed a race, receiving 2.5 stars. 11-year-old Margaret navigates new friends, feelings, and the beginning of adolescence in Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, which charmed its way to 3.5 stars. Control is an Illusion in the new Ben Affleck thriller Hypnotic, which didn't keep me mesmerized, receiving 2.5 stars. And finally, A Fool for Love becomes an accidental celebrity, only to lose it all in one of the worst movies of the year in Fool's Paradise, which received 1 star. You can find those reviews on my previous episodes, and just a reminder, if you haven't yet, make sure you hit follow or subscribe, and don't forget to leave me a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And make sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Show. Now it's that time of year again around the Seattle area where we have the Snohomish Film Festival. You can now submit your film into the festival by going to www.filmfreeway.com/Snohomish Film Festival. We've had a lot of great talent this year. Do not wait to the last minute to submit your film. I cannot wait to see your movie. Now, lastly, I do have a couple pieces of news. Now, it just seems like yesterday that I was on this lovely man show for the first time, and we were having a fantastic conversation surrounding the Mel Brooks classic, The Producers. Now, one of his shows and one of my favorite movie pods are back after a brief absence, and that's Antonio over at the cult-worthy classic. In his latest episode, he has asked me back to discuss a fantastic movie, and that's the 1969 Alan Arkin film, Poppy. The link to that episode will be in the description of this episode. Now, I have also made another appearance on another fantastic show with another fantastic host whose episode just went live. This man has been a great friend to me and to my show. He has allowed me to take a break from movies and just have a conversation around some interesting topics. And every time we get together, things just seem to go off the rails, and we just have a fantastic time. And that's Dan over at the Casting Views podcast. In his new episode, we discuss amazing and unbelievable facts. This is an episode you do not want to miss. Make sure you subscribe to both of these amazing shows, but let's take a moment and hear from Dan over at Casting Views now.
Fancy taking a humorous trip down a random topic each week? You do? Well, you're in luck. Casting Views, presented by me, Dan, and a host of guests, bring you just that. With topics from the world of entertainment, science, sport, and everyday life, there's bound to be a topic that's going to inform and amuse. Catch Casting Views every Sunday on all listening platforms now.
A meticulous gardener who is devoted to tending to the grounds of a beautiful estate and pandering to his employer. But when the troubled great niece of his employer arrives seeking an apprenticeship, Narvel's perfectly cultivated life begins to unravel, unearthing secrets from a violent past that threaten to destroy everything he holds dear. Now playing in select theaters is Master Gardener.
The Nandina is a species of flowering plant native to Eastern Asia. The smell at certain times of the year gives you a real buzz. Like the buzz you get just before pulling the trigger.
I have a favor to ask.
What is it?
My grandniece. I would like you to take her on as an apprentice. She dropped out of school and then she ended up in a bad crowd.
You'll learn how to garden. Are you satisfied with the life that you have?
How would you ask that? You know, you talk a lot of shit, but there's one thing you don't talk about.
What's that?
Yourself.
Well, there's not much to know.
You put the deep 6 on 9 bad guys.
Oh, well, it was a long time ago.
Even if they're dead, you're not forgotten.
Have you ever killed anyone?
Why would you say that?
Take off your shirt.
You are impertinent.
Maya's just finding her own way.
And I'm the Queen of Scotland.
Gardening is a belief in the future, a belief that things will happen according to plan. Who did this to you?
What are you gonna do?
Time to start a new life.
I have created this life. Filled it with rules. Now seems the time to break one.
Written and directed by the great Paul Schrader, whose previous writing credits include Taxi Driver, American Gigolo, Raging Bull, The Mosquito Coast, City Hall, and Bringing Out the Dead. And his previous directorial credits include Blue Collar and American Gigolo, to just name a couple. Now, viewing a Schrader film, especially one that's written and directed by, is a dialogue-driven treat for those that seek out a movie like this. He adds a certain level of uncomfort that walks a fine line to subtly thrilling, to keeping your mind sharp and focused on the screen, to see where he is going to go with his characters and story. Schrader is a man of magic when it comes to a character-driven story. Now, Master Gardener isn't going to be Paul Schrader's new masterpiece, and again, this is a type of movie that will not be everybody's cup of tea. But whether you like it or not, what this film will do is sneak back into your head in deep thought well after you watch the movie. Master Gardener is the third movie in Schrader's Man in the Room trilogy, alongside First Reformed and The Card Counter, which after this movie we get a running theme for this trilogy is that the men go on a path to counter virtue from their troubled past or present, where they have a contradiction, vice, or regret that settles beneath their respected uniform, such as a clergy, military service, and now a gardener. It's a symbolic message of a mask to hide oneself. Now, each film is an individual story, and you don't need to see any of the other movies to understand, but Master Gardener is a fantastic way to end this trilogy. And if you haven't seen any of those other films, I would strongly recommend doing so. It will give you a greater appreciation for the way you look at Master Gardener. The character's raw subtleness along with the performances drift across the screen as we are witnessing a dreamlike state, and at times it could feel like more of a nightmare. Schrader treats his settings and his tone like revisiting a previous memory, which coincides with our characters trying to run and hide from their past or memories. The movie stars Joel Edgerton from The Green Knight, Black Mass, and Boy Erased as Narvel Roth, a horticulturist who tends to the grounds of Gracewood Gardens and tends to his wealthy employer Norma Haverhill, played by Sigourney Weaver. Norma asks for a favor from Narvel to have her great niece Maya, played by Quintessa Swindle from the movie Black Adam, come and become an apprentice under Narvel. Now, the casting here, I have to say, is absolutely brilliant. The casting is done by Matthew Morgan, and this will be an achievement for him based on his previous films. This is one of those castings that after you watch, you can't picture a better cast. Now the film centers around Narvel and Maya from the apprenticeship to a growing chemistry of attraction that stays subtle in the performance and dialogue because Schrader leans heavily on body language and how each one communicates their internal conflict to one another. The more each one divulges about themselves, the more intimate the camera shots get, the longer the looks get, and the more each one attempts to find out more about the other. Schrader utilizes his director skills to build this chemistry and doesn't rely on forced overspoken dialogue to make this relationship happen, not just use words to force feed the audience. And this is wildly successful for most of it, until we get into the third act where Master Gardener feels like it's missing something, or a scene was missing. The transition of the relationship seems to miss a step and it's escalated too quickly to really make it believable. I needed more screen time with Narvel and Maya to really build another step before jumping into the payoff. And this isn't the only thing that the film needed an extra step in. Narvel's background needed a little bit more to truly understand him as a character. We get flashbacks of his past and self-narration of his current state, but his past was too subtle to know who he is. The audience and viewer know what he has done and we know what he was part of, but we don't know what's truly different or what's changed. What the film needed was an additional 30 minutes to truly explore and set up the second half of the movie, which was a little bit disappointing to me because there is not a lot that happens in Master Gardener, but just the mere fact of the cast, the writing, the intrigue Schrader teases made me want more. I selfishly wanted another 30 minutes to really enjoy these characters and these performers. When it comes to skill, tone, technical examples of proper camera shots to build upon our characters' emotions, this is a movie that should be seen by film students to truly understand and appreciate the example that Schrader gives up in creating a vision of good, by directing people and settings and not relying on CGI consistent talking to truly execute your messaging in your story. I have a feeling that this will be a movie that will be spoken about down the road, and I hope so. With the limited release that this has now, I can only hope that viewers give it a chance to see it on streaming platforms. But I have to say, this is a type of movie and story that should be seen in a theater. It should be seen on a big screen to truly appreciate the details that the cast and the director put on screen. Master Gardener, as the final installment of the trilogy by Paul Schrader, holistically is masterful, and all the films should be watched to truly appreciate the story and symbolism that Schrader puts in. Even though Master Gardener again can be seen as a standalone story, it is with its storytelling flaws. But what Paul Schrader creates to truly get into the viewer's head is talent not many can accomplish. And that's what makes Schrader a man of his craft. Now, like I said in my review, this might not be everybody's cup of tea. Some might find it pointless, some might find it boring, but they would just be looking on the surface of the movie. Just like the movie, if you look beneath the surface, you might find something of interest. I'm giving Master Gardener 3.5 stars. Oh, crap. Okay. Here we go. The inspirational true story of Richard Montanez, who, as a Frito-Lay janitor, disrupted the food industry by channeling his Mexican heritage to turn Flamin Hot Cheetos from a snack into an iconic global pop culture phenomenon in the Disney Plus and Hulu original movie, Flamin' Hot.
We all write our own stories.
Where is Richard? I'd like to speak to him.
I'm here. This time. That's me, the Mero Mero, Mr. Richard Montañez. I'm the guy who helped bring the world the most popular snack it's ever seen.
Are you ready?
A huevo. I've been ready. All right. It was a little bit more like this. Spicy? Yeah, see, that's how I got here. Dear God, please forgive me for the gang, the drugs, the stolen cars.
What the heck, man? Let's move it.
Hey, he is praying, pendejo. Go ahead, baby.
The guy started at the very bottom. I know I don't look it, but I got a PhD. I'm poor, hungry, and determined, sir.
Okay, I can see you're gonna be a weird one.
What's happening?
Layoffs, son. Lots of them.
Frito-Lay isn't getting enough orders to keep the factory open.
Who eats Cool Ranch anyway? That lady.
Wow.
What is it?
It burns.
Well, stop eating it.
No, I like it. It burns good.
I had been searching for an answer. And there it was. They had been there the entire time.
Nothing can hold you back.
I got an idea. It's a spicy chip. It's gonna change everything. It will save our factory.
And you're a janitor.
Okay, no, hang on.
No one can kill your vibe.
Figure out the next step. Say, the Hispanic market will not be ignored.
The Hispanic market will not be ignored.
Good, but in your voice.
You got the fire inside.
Why are we wasting time on this janitor's crazy idea?
Guys like you and me, we don't get shots like this.
You see that guy right there? I see a chingon, a montañez.
Yo soy Montañez.
Soy montañez.
Get out there and
Be great.
Nothing can hold you back.
We want to know that we matter to you. If we knew that there was a product out there for us, we'd say, take all our money, cabrones. I got a little hood there at the end, but...
Burns good or burns bad? It burns good.
This is the year of product placement true story movies. Now, every time these come out, I will start to list the products that have been turned into movies this year. We have movies like Tetris, Nike, BlackBerry, and now Frito-Lay's Hot Cheetos. And those of you that haven't listened to my previous episodes, I made it very easy for you as I put these films in order of likability. Now, Flamin' Hot isn't a bad film. There is a lot to enjoy here, but it does act more like that person in your life that really tries hard to get you to really like them. The effort is there, but the attempt is so obvious and overdone that it pushes you away to become obnoxious. While watching Flamin' Hot, I was reminded of the 1986 Michael Keaton film Gung Ho, where we have a Japanese car company that buys an American plant, and Michael Keaton must mediate the clash of work attitudes between the foreign management. The difference between the two films is that Flamin' Hot dumbs it way down with little to no emotional dialogue or investment to make us rise to our feet at the end and applaud. It plays it like a lower budget attempt at a reboot focused on lower class workers knowing their place in a corporate world. And this topic can hit way too close to home for some to find humor in it. The writers attached to this project would have had to be extremely skilled to balance a story like this when it comes to humor and emotion. and to convince the viewer of the angle they're shooting for to work. It is an extremely tricky feat to balance, and in this case, it just doesn't work, which is a shame because one of the writers on this project is one that I have been a fan of from previous works on thrillers. So I was curious on how he would do with this project, and that's Lewis Collick from films like 1992's Unlawful Entry, Judgment Night, Bulletproof, Ghosts of Mississippi, October Sky, and Beyond the Sea. And alongside Collick, we have two writers in which this is their biggest writing project yet. That includes the real Richard Montanez and Lydia Yvette Chavez. Now, I have a great respect when it comes to Collick and his thrillers, and I think this is a movie that was a very odd choice for him, and I can't really find an explanation to why he chose to write this film, unless he is just a really big fan of Flamin Hot Cheetos. I can only imagine his Cheeto-covered keyboard after writing this movie. Now, the film stars Jesse Garcia from 2022's Ambulance and from Dusk Till Dawn, the series, as a positive-minded father figure and husband, Richard Montanez, who doesn't have a high school diploma and feels the weight of bettering himself for the sake of his family. Richard desperately seeks out employment where he is unsuccessful from the mix of a lack of a diploma, and it takes place in the early 90s where discrimination took a heavy hold in society and where you stood in the work environment that I will get into in just one second. Now, Richard becomes so desperate that he feels the only solution is to go back to a life of crime by dealing drugs, until he lands a job at Frito-Lay as a janitor. Now, Flamin' Hot covers the discrimination topic in a way that is simplistic messaging, and it's just enough not to throw off the tone of the movie, but yet it still makes you angry at the way society was then and even to an extent today. With countless entrepreneurs with little to no education today becoming well-to-do on just a single idea, the movie would have been better suited kind of focusing on this topic. And as we are taught to learn from history, it baffles me how even today, with the proof of the idea to invest in people, that society still looks upon an education as more of a status symbol. The investment in people is what's the most important when it comes to an idea. Roger Enrico, the CEO of Frito-Lay in the 90s, is played by a personal favorite, Tony Shalhoub from the TV show Monk. Now, Roger Enrico in the film says it the way it should be seen. I invest in people, not product. A simple but powerful statement that should be the foundation of running any company. And I wish the film would have really zeroed in on this messaging to help drive the story, and this would have drastically helped give the more impactful climax. Now, surrounding these topics, the movie does throw in different conflicts and obstacles to Richard to prove the messaging before it's even presented, as if we're sitting through a business presentation from Richard to convince the audience, hey, this is why you should invest in my character. Now, Flamin' Hot does throw in a lot of smart scenes to help support not just our characters, but show the flaws in a work environment. It uses the discrimination as a key focal point, but Flamin' Hot also opens up the social status that a lot of us have felt or even currently feeling today in the workforce. For example, in a clever scene set in the Frito-Lay factory in a cafeteria, describes the different tables and the different worker classes from the bottom janitorial staff all the way up to the executive management. Each table represented a social status or group or class, if you will. It plays like high school all over again. It's a fantastic scene to show the example of how separated employees versus management is in the workplace. And this also puts a potential roadblock for Richard's dream to become an engineer, where he attempts to befriend machine engineer Clarence to actually teach him the ways of engineering the factory. Clarence is played by Dennis Haysbert, you know, the Allstate insurance guy. Now, Richard is warned by his class of co-workers to know his place, and Clarence is above his pay grade and to stay away. Now, the clash and resistance by Richard to swim against the professional current to keep pushing boundaries, the challenge, and obstacles. These conflicts that Richard faces are extremely fragmented and too straightforward with little to no pushback to make it truly feel like it's high stakes and to really make it feel like a conflict. The actions and results of these conflicts are too easily resolved when the dialogue sets it up for a bigger challenge. It's not a proper balance between the two. And as we go through the plot, the storyline, and these obstacles, the story is narrated during many segments that many might think feel familiar, and they would be right to have this feeling. Because we have seen this style of narration before, and it's almost an insulting copycat. It's the same narration that we got from Michael Pena in the Ant-Man films, an exaggerated, fast-talking scenario narration. I had trouble during these narrations because I kept picturing Michael Pena in the role of Richard, and it almost made me lose credibility for Jesse Garcia because by doing these narrations in the same style and the same performance, it makes the viewer compare the two. And by the end of the movie, I thought, maybe Michael would have been a better fit. The film was directed by Eva Longoria, who also played Dora's mom Elena in the live-action Dora movie, and this is her first major motion picture in the director's seat, and she does a decent job here to really understand the written material and what it's trying to go for. But the problem is that the writing wasn't edgy enough to really know what kind of movie it wanted to be, but Longoria does a decent job attempting to make do with what she had. And in fairness, the tone that she does set is engaging to a point we want to see the movie through to the end. Flamin' Hot is an innocent and at times generic attempt at an inspirational feel-good comedy drama, but doesn't give us enough to really feel good nor inspired or even give us anything truly funny. But for what it's worth, Longoria's direction is admirable and engaging that does keep us interested for the entire runtime. And for that runtime, we do have a handful of great moments. But by the time the credits rolled, we are left with nothing but a shrug of the shoulders. I'm giving Flamin' Hot 2 stars. Now, before I talk about our friends over at Newsly, I do have some exciting news that I have made my first appearance on the Geeky Dad podcast, where me and host Raphael discuss James Cameron's sequels. The Geeky Dad is on my list for my weekly go-to podcast. Raphael has an incredibly entertaining show, and it is an absolute blast to join him. Make sure you check out my appearance on his show that is live now. Make sure to listen and don't forget to subscribe. The link to his podcast will be in the description of this episode. And lastly, I just want to talk a little bit about our friends over at Newsly. It gets so hard to keep track and even have time to read all the trending topics on the web. Now there's a new app to help with all of those problems. Newsly is an audio app for iOS and Android. It picks up web articles about the most trending topics on the web at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. For the first time in the history of the internet, the entire web becomes listenable. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, science, to Bitcoin. You can even follow Kardashian. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you out loud. And guess what? They have podcasts as well. Explore trending podcasts from over 50 countries. The Movie Wire is now a featured podcast on the Newsly app. Download and use Newsly for free now. The link will be in the description of this episode. You can also use one of my promo codes that you will find in the description as well to get you a 1-month free premium subscription. Stop scrolling, start listening, download Newsly today. During the 90s, a new faction of Transformers, the Maximals, joined the Autobots as allies in the battle for Earth in Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
We're in the middle of an ongoing war. We'd love to have the big guys join the fight.
Roll out! Wow, that was corny when I said it out loud. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah.
You've never faced anything like this.
Oh, God. It's about to go down. Oh, God. It's about to go down. Oh, God. It's about to go. It's about to go. It's about to go down. Who won't smoke? Who won't smoke? We get to a hoe. I'm the king. So everybody is a click strap and they all go. Keep a stick till I branch pop it, but I ain't a troll. On my mama, ain't nobody out here playing for no hoe.
If you keep your eyes open, life will show you everything you need to know.
Now that's top tier manifestation. Commander on the banter, just one answer. I'm an animal. Gorillas in the trap with them. We fighting this alone or we fighting it together?
Together.
Let's get it. Turn it up to the maximum. To the maximum. To the maximum.
Transformers: Rise of the Beasts.
Yeah, turn it up.
I'm never leaving Brooklyn again.
On my soul.
Hitting the big screen in 2007 was the first live-action Transformers film, which had its flaws, but what it did do very well is respect the simplicity in storytelling, and respected the viewer using the boy and his dog strategy. Take a minimal human character and add in an interesting focal spectacle character that audiences can feel engaged with. That targeted two different audiences, fans of the Transformers brand, and those that just want to see cool robots transform into cool vehicles. Now, the Transformers franchise has brought in audiences since the 2007 film, not necessarily because they're good movies, but because audiences kept having hope that they would eventually get better. The follow-up to the first film was Revenge of the Fallen, in which we had the writer's strike around this time, and the result we got was almost a complete opposite when it comes to the charm of the first film. A noisy yet boring visual effects extravaganza that was a pure definition of mind-numbing entertainment. But viewers kept coming movie after movie. I fell into this trend as well until the 2017's The Last Night, which was where I drew the line in the sand to get my hopes up with any Transformers movie that would follow. The Transformers movies had turned into a clear plastic bag full of shiny silverware that the filmmakers were paid to shake in front of a camera for over 2 hours. But then Bumblebee came out in 2018 with an even more simplistic story, simplistic characters. It restored my faith and hope. It even brought back heart and charm of the original movie. And even more so, it elevated the heart and charm. And now we are introduced to a new Transformers movie, and once again, a big cast of Transformers and an equal amount of villains. So once again, the skepticism creeped in before I walked into the theater, and what went through my mind is, did we not learn anything between 2007 and 2018? But I did go into this movie with an open mind. Now, the film is set in 1994, which I thought was a very smart move to transition from Bumblebee, and with the acknowledgement of the Bumblebee movie to put audiences at ease that this is a continuation. The design of the Transformers, even though not as elaborately colorful as we saw in Bumblebee, the design of the Transformers are a huge improvement from the Michael Bay films. The simplistic, colorful, cartoonish design really helps add a layer of fun factor to the screen, instead of the giant Johnny 5 without personality that we have gotten in the past. Transformers Rise of the Beast was directed by Creed 2 director Stephen Caple Jr., who does a decent job here, especially with taking advantage of the environment and utilizations of the proper lighting to slightly change the tone from city to forest, where it's not a huge tone difference to be significant to a setting, but enough to really make us feel the importance of the setting change. Along with this, we have Caple's use of wide-angle shots to really capture the settings and give us that sense of awe with our robots in disguise. And this is what I really respect about Bumblebee and now Transformers Rise of the Beast, is that it takes its time with the editing, it takes its time with our robots, where we do not feel that we are riding an uncomfortable visual roller coaster with strobe light editing. This was my biggest issue with most of the Transformers films, was that the hard cuts and up-close shots with the CGI, where when there was a fight, we didn't know who was fighting who, and it didn't respect the visual effects on screen, by really allowing the audience to really have those effects sink in. Now, the biggest issue I have with this film also acts as a strength holistically in its innocent tone and feel, which is the writing. Rise of the Beast was written by Joby Harold from The Flash that also opened up this last week, along with newcomers Darnell Metier and Josh Peters, in which this is their first major motion picture. Now, I just want to give some clarity here. Rise of the Beast does a fantastic job at giving the audience the tone and feeling, no matter what your age is, of really playing like a Saturday morning cartoon, with a simplistic conflict, a story that keeps a brisk pace without really ever feeling like it's dragging. It has eye-pleasing robot designs, and an underdog human hero that is actually utilized, not just used as a prop beside a hyperactive CGI character, but rather a hero that we can really root for. Then comes the actual dialogue that is simplistic in its intent to gain a nostalgic feeling as a Saturday morning cartoon, but comes across way too Saturday morning cartoon. Whereas we run into that climax where Rise of the Beast attempts an emotional response, but the leading up to dialogue from the rest of the movie doesn't give us buy-in or believability. It's too simplistic in parts where it should have been more complex when it comes to how the relationships and emotion was built. The elements and setup to lead to a successful climax are set in place, but we lack execution, especially with our main human character, our underdog Noah, played by Anthony Ramos from In the Heights, A Star Is Born, and his run on Hamilton. Ramos does a fantastic job here. His performance gives us something to really root for, but sadly his character seems to be written against his performance. It always feels like he's struggling to see where he wants to take the character, where Noah has a big conflict but small dialogue to really have the conflict feel like it's high stakes. Then we have the ever so lovely Dominic Fishback from The Hate U Give and Judas and the Black Messiah as Elena Wallace. She is the one character that has the most consistent dialogue, but it's not without its flaws. Her performance I did like, and it was entertaining and engaging, but I found myself during scenes signaling my hands towards the screen for more. We needed a more high-stakes performance and bigger reactions from her. Both of our main characters have opposite flaws in their characters, which in theory should balance out, but they don't share enough screen time with each other without the Transformers to really have these flaws balance out. And this would have been a great opportunity to really have about 5-10 minutes where these two really let loose on their internal conflicts. Transformers Rise of the Beast took me by surprise, but that's by comparison of the others. The last movie, Bumblebee, was a breath of fresh air when it comes to the heart it had. And we have the attempted heart here, but the writing doesn't succeed. It feels like the first Transformers and the Bumblebee movie sat across a table to negotiate what this movie was going to be. But for what it's worth, Rise of the Beast is an entertaining couple of hours of popcorn-eating fun, but not enough to fully endorse it. And I can now put it with the other two Transformer movies that are at least watchable. I'm giving Transformers Rise of the Beast 2.5 stars. And that's a cut on this week's edition of The Movie Wire. I want to thank you for listening and thank you for your support. You can also show support by following me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd at Movie Wire Show. And don't forget to leave me a review on Apple Podcasts. Until next week, do me a favor, make sure you stay for after the credits to show the respect to those that put their blood, sweat, and tears into making a feature film and support your local movie theaters.
A verdict has been made on this episode of The Movie Wire by your host, Justin Henson. He thanks you for listening to the show. You can follow Justin on Instagram and Twitter at Movie Wire Show or visit his website, www.themoviewire.com. Oh, and don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Until next time, we will see you at the movies.
Thank you for bringing me to the movies.